learning how to ask the Lord to help us with our disbelief. Even as a believer, right? The Bible gives us a great understanding of this. And I always like to use scripture. The Bible in Mark 9, verses 21 through 26 gives us a great understanding. And you can also find this story in the book of Matthew chapter 17. It's concerning a father who had a demon-possessed son. And the disciples were out healing, and they could not remove this unclean spirit from this young man. And the father was standing in the gap for his son, and he brought him to the disciples, and they couldn't remove the unclean spirit. But what happens is that when he sees Jesus, that doesn't deter him. He sees Jesus, and he goes to Jesus directly and explains to him about the situation with his son, and also that the disciples, they were unable to remove this unclean spirit. And the first thing that Jesus does is challenges his faith. And he says that I am a believer, but help my unbelief. When you read the scripture, you're gonna see that particular exchange. And that's the particular exchange many people glance over. But it's important that we understand, even as a believer, you can be a believer. I'm a believer. But in some areas, we have a degree of unbelief. And this is what Jesus was pointing out to him. The man said he's there for his son. Now, if you go to the hospitals or you deal with people, it's nothing like a mother or father who's praying for their son, right? Who's crying out to God for their son or daughter, for their child. Let's put it that way. The Bible just uses a young man, but this is for a young man or a woman or whoever it may be. He's standing in the gap and crying out for the child. Go ahead and unmute, Keith. He's crying out for the child. And Jesus, the first thing Jesus does is ask him about his faith, his belief. And as believers, many times we